Welcome back to Unlimited Reads. You're with Chris, and thanks for joining me today as I will be wrapping up the month of November, where I finally got caught up with my Cosmere journey somewhat, so that I'm ready for Stormlight Archive book number 5, Wind and Truth, that is released in just a few days' time. Now, I have missed a couple of Cosmere books. I still have to read The Sunlit Man and Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, which will now unfortunately have to be moved into early next year, but so looking forward to the 6th of December. Okay, so let's start how I always like to, with some basic stats. Now, I read in November 2 novels and 1 short story. Now, I read 2,207 pages, which was 890 up from October, which wasn't too bad. The genres I read in were 1 horror, 1 thriller, and 1 fantasy. Now, I posted 13 videos, which was 1 down from October, which wasn't too bad. The best performing long form video was my spoiler free review of Rhythm of War by Mr. Brandon Sanderson. Now, at the time of filming this, I think I've just clocked over the 100 views, which isn't too bad. It's what I would expect, hopefully, for a Cosmere book review, which will continue to do well. I usually average between 200 and 300 views for a main Cosmere book, particularly the Stormlight Archive. The poorest performing video was my latest flash fiction audio, which had 7 views, but I did post it late in the month, so it hasn't had time to gain momentum yet, and it will happen in the next month or two as more and more people jump on board for this new segment, which I'm very, very happy to share with everyone, where I'm digging through old short stories and transcribing them vocally so that I can share them as a little audio short. Even though my voice is rubbish and sounds rubbish, I just thought it's a nice way to share that with you. So what actually did I read in November? Now, if you've been following the channel for a little while, you'll know that I read and finished this massive brick, Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. 1,372 pages. It took me 2 weeks, and I did this as part of a buddy read with John over at Talking Story. I think we both had a blast with it. Now, the conclusion I drew, and it's all in my spoiler-free review, but out of all 4 Stormlight books to date, this one was my least favourite. But it did have moments that really hit me in the feels and caused me to react with a bit of emotion, especially in the last part of the book, which I have mentioned in that spoiler-free review, that this part 5 is probably the best out of all the Stormlight books I've read to date, and that is massive. But it did drag with pacing at times, which was a little bit disappointing, but I still finished it in 2 weeks, which is what I was budgeting for, and now I'm well and truly prepared for Wind and Truth, so bring that on. Okay, now I also I started Stephen King's Christine as a reread at the start of the month, but then when the buddy read was on, I put all my energy into Rhythm of War, so I only picked this one up after I finished Rhythm of War and finished it, and it was fantastic. This is the first book I ever picked up of Stephen King's, and this is the book that's responsible for me going on a lifelong love affair with Stephen King's work and becoming a constant reader, and reading it for the second time. I hadn't read it since I was 15, so it's a long time between reads, but I'm glad I picked this up for a reread. I did enjoy Salem's Lot and Pet Sematary immensely, and I thought this one is a logical choice for my next Stephen King reread. It's just fantastic. Now, I'm not going to put up a review for this one. There doesn't appear to be many views when I do a Stephen King spoiler chat, so I'm just going to let that go. But let me tell you that I really enjoyed the family dynamic and how Arnie himself is explored as a character, and what Christine does in the book is just unbelievable. It is the film is fairly true to the book in some respects, but you know, there are things that can't be included in the film, which is why the book is always generally better than the film. Now, in terms of a remake, I've heard news of a Christine remake. I'm just not sure how they're going to do it, because Christine is a 1958 Plymouth, and I don't think any other car could be used in a remake, but we're just going to have to see how that goes. But I'm not even sure if a remake is in the works yet, but it'll be interesting nonetheless to see what they can actually do with it. I also read a short story, and that was The Housemaid's Wedding by Frida McFadden, which was 78 pages, so it was a single sitting read for me. I really enjoyed it. Between books 2 and 3 of the Housemaid series, there's a large gap of about 12 to 15 years, so between that time, Millie and Enzo have kids, and this was just an interesting little short about their wedding, and it takes place between books 2 and 3, and it was pretty entertaining and had a little twist at the end as well, which Frida McFadden is renowned for. But it was just a nice palate cleanser for what I read for the month, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Now, because one of the books I read was a reread, which doesn't really count for book of the month, I'm not doing a book of the month this time because it only leaves Rhythm of War, so you can't really have a book of the month from just one read. So I'm just going to let that slide for this month because I only read 2 novels as such, so there's no point picking out a book of the month. So yeah, won't be doing that one this month, but hopefully I'll get a book of the month down for December. As for the highlights for me for December, there were 2. The first highlight was doing the buddy read with John at Talking Story. I had an absolute blast with it. Really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed comparing notes on Twitter messages, and yeah, it's always fun to interact with John in that way and read a book together, and hopefully we'll be able to read more together in the future, which I'm really looking forward to. And the other highlight was being a guest on the Bearded Book Beast. Chris was kind enough to invite me on, and we had a bit of a chat for a bit over an hour, which was fantastic, and we got to talk about books and our love of reading and other subjects as well. But it was really good to make a friend in Chris, and that'll move forward as well, so I can't wait to interact with him more. He is going to be reading Words of Radiance in December, so I figured I can have him on my channel after he reads that, so he can tell me what he thinks of it. But moving forward, looking forward to the friendship moving forward as well, and can't wait to interact more. So December for me is going to be all about Wind and Truth. Now, up until this point, I have been reading with a little bit of pressure on myself to get ready for the release of Wind and Truth. So now that it's almost here, I'm pretty much going to be a bit relaxed in December and spend as long as it takes to read it. So the other books I've averaged about 2 weeks. With this one, I'm going to take my time a little bit because I want to savour it, because it's going to be the last Stormlight book for a few years until Brandon Sanderson gets onto number 6, which will be a long time coming because I think he wants to do other things before that. I think he's going to be doing Mistborn Era 3 before he does another Stormlight Archive book. So there's no problem with me just taking my time and savouring the pages, and if it takes me 3 weeks to read the book, or even the whole month of December, well, that's okay as well. If I manage to get my other reads squeezed in for the month, that's going to be a bit of a bonus, but at the moment I'm prioritising Wind and Truth. I do also want to try and squeeze in the next Jack Ryan book that is just about to be released, and that is Defence Protocol, which is written by Andrews and Wilson. They wrote Act of Defiance recently, which I absolutely loved, so I may be getting stuck into that in between Wind and Truth. So just going to take my time. I'm going to be a bit relaxed because it's been a pretty busy year, so I just want to kick back and just have a relaxed attitude with my reading rather than racing to beat the clock. Even though the other Stormlight books I managed to absorb everything, I still was on a bit of a mission to get them read. But with Wind and Truth, I don't have to do that. I can just take my time and enjoy it and savour it and share my thoughts with it on the channel, which will be very good. Now, coming up next month is going to be my second annual Bookish Brilliance Awards. It's going to be a similar format to last year, where it was like the Oscars, but for the books I read. So there's going to be the same categories again, and there's going to be a list of nominees, and then there's going to be a winner out of each category, and the book that wins multiple categories ends up being my book of the year. Do I have any predictions on what my book of the year may be? I think Brandon Sanderson is likely, but we're just going to see what happens there. There are a lot of books I read this year that I loved, actually quite a few 5-star reads, which will be all vying for the top position, and I don't even know what it's going to be, but it'll all be revealed when I do the Bookish Brilliance Awards, which will be after I finish Wind and Truth. So a lot of exciting things coming. Now, just before I go, I have some special show and tell and some special news for you. Now, this has only come about recently. I have decided to jump back on the writer's saddle. I used to write years ago, and I want to do it again. Now, what I'm going to be doing is the stories that I've been transcribing onto audio shorts for the channel. I'm going to be looking at all my old stories and looking at them very very closely and edit them, revise them, expand them if need be, and add some more new pieces to what I think could be a decent collection I plan on self-publishing. Now, I'm not going down the traditional route because it's hard enough to get a publisher to publish a collection, and it's also going to be very unlikely for a publisher to accept some of the material contained within this collection that I am proposing. Now, it's going to include a lot of my old stories, but I plan on writing fresh stuff as well. There is a particular short story that I'm very fond of, which I'm going to expand into a novella length work. I think there's a lot of opportunity there to expand on some certain things and add some more characters and more scenes. I think I've got a really good foundation there to work upon, and I'll do a couple of new shorts and things like that. I think it's fair to do that rather than just rehash old works and just put them out. I think adding some new material will provide some contrast and comparison with my old writing compared to what could be new writing. And I'm just going to be sharing my writer's journey moving forward. Now, I'm not sure how often I will post writing videos, but I'll create a different segment and different themed thumbnail to differentiate that from the normal videos on the channel. But let me show you what I have come up with. Now, the collection itself does not have a title, so it's simply called Untitled Collection. If you can see here, I'll just move it into the camera a little bit here. And I've got a rough table of contents. So this table of contents does not include any potential new writing I'm going to include, and it's also not going to be the final order of stories. So here it is here. I think there's about 20 stories there as well. So if I add a few more things to it, it's going to be pretty good. The bottom story there, Hugo, Man of a Thousand Faces, is the short story I'm going to expand upon, because just having reread the short story recently and reviewed it, there is very much a good scope for expansion there to make it into something pretty special, which I'll be working hard on over the next 6 to 12 months. So going on to Amazon Direct Publishing, it's not going to be a very quick thing where I just whip up the stories and get them all into a document and upload it. It's going to go through a very lengthy draft process. This collection will not be published unless it's absolutely perfect from an editing perspective. I'll do my own editing just to bring it up to speed, make sure it's a quality work, even to get the typesetting spot on, to get everything polished up so it shines up like a shiny new gem, and create an evocative title. I'll be designing my own cover art as well, which will be cool, and I'll also be doing some marketing and things like that. If I think that I am 3 months away from completing it, I'll open up pre-orders and things like that. I'm pretty happy to put a price tag of $1 on it, or 99 cents, which will represent pretty good value. It's more important to me to gain a readership rather than be in it for making money. If I sell a few copies, if I sell 100 copies and get $100 for it, well, that's all fine, minus whatever Amazon charge. But I don't need to put $5 on it or anything like that, because the readership is more important to me. If I get enough of a readership, I can look at writing a novel length work and charging a bit more for it if I gain momentum. So it's just a way I can share all my old stories and potential new works and get my name out there again. So there you go, guys. That is it for my monthly wrap up for November. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my videos, please consider subscribing. Help me get to 1,000 subscribers and beyond. Now, I have said it before, I think that if I get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, or whenever I get 1,000 subscribers, I am going to get drunk on camera in a live stream, which will be very funny. So keep that in mind. If you want to subscribe, please do. If you want a bit of entertainment and see me get drunk on camera, then yeah, go for it. But until the next video, guys, happy reading.